Okay, Genesis 22, as we begin. Genesis 22. When Abraham goes up on the mountain, Abraham has, oh my God, they took away the stages. Who did that? Oh, was it the Wisconsin man? Well, who are you pointing to? I guess, huh? Cody? Wait till don't ever come near my house weed whacking. No, it's okay. As we consider these, we consider progressive faith. Somebody got the air conditioning on or something? It feels weird. Just like leave nothing on. No, it's you. You did it. Okay, are you with me now? Are all interruptions finally done? Okay. Anyway, Oliver's here. That's okay, Oliver. It's called discipline. Abraham grew in faith. It was progressive in stages in his life. In Genesis 12, he went out not knowing where he was going, not mindful of where he came from. Genesis 15, in 14 and 15, he had the provision test. We see the king of Sodom saying to him, you give me the people and you take the goods. And he said, no, I'll take the people. You can have the goods. Then in Genesis 17, he had another progressive test, another stage in his life. Genesis 22, he comes to a place where God asks him to offer up Isaac, his only son. And that was quite a test, a faith test for him. But verse 16, it says, Genesis 22:16, and said, by myself have I sworn, says the Lord. For because you have done this thing and have not withheld thy son, thy only son, that in blessing I will bless you. That speaks of his personal life. And in multiplying I will multiply thy seed. Somebody should shut that off. Is that shut off? Okay. It's cold up here. In blessing I will bless you, and in multiplying I will multiply thy seed as the stars of the heaven and as the sand which is upon the seashore. And thy seed shall possess the gate of his enemies. I like that. It's like three great promises there. I'm going to bless you, I'm going to multiply you, and you're going to have victory. Your seed will possess the gate of his enemies. So that's an awesome portion of Scripture. Now let's turn to Hebrews 11, where we see a reference made to this. Hebrews 11 is in the New Testament. For some of you that are not familiar with the Bible, Harvey, it's in the New Testament. I don't know why there's an old and a new anyway. I don't know why the Old Testament is old. I thought it was eternal. But older. Verse 12. Hebrews 11, verse 12. Therefore sprang there even of one, and him as good as Pastor Murillo. As good as dead. And him as good as dead. So many as the what? The stars of the sky in multitude, and in the sand which is by the seashore, innumerable. So really we see the very same verse that is connected to Genesis 22, 16 and 17. one as good as dead. Even of one and him as good as dead. So really two things there. Not only was he the only one, but he was as good as dead when it came to physical reproduction. To one as good as dead. And then we go to this next verse, which I think is an awesome verse. These all died in faith. Now that doesn't mean exactly the way the English puts it, but until their death, they were controlled by faith. That's how it reads in the Greek language. In other words, their whole life, they died or they came to the point of death. And even to that point, they were people of faith. And I think that's amazing that all their life, every stage, even to the end, they still had faith in God. They died in faith. They died. And when they died, they were people of faith. They didn't quit in stage 2, 3, or 4, or 5, but they died in faith. Thank you. These all died in faith, not having received the promises. Now, can you imagine how many people are so intent on, God promised, God promised, God promised, God promised me this, God promised me that, God promised me someone, God promised me a child, God promised me healing, God promised me a husband, God promised me a wife, God promised me children. They didn't receive the promises. They died in faith. What? What does it say there? Not having received the promises. They never got the promises. They knew them, but they didn't see the promise. Okay? And there's going to be many things in our lives. How many things, I mean, you can imagine if Pastor Stevens' first wife knew what would take place. She didn't see the promises, right? She didn't see it, but she had the promises. Maybe when Dr. Stevens, in his early years, when he was very young, after he got saved when he was 23 years old, and then had a church of 5 people in Maine, 5 or 6 people, 3 of them being ancient mariners in their 60s and 70s. And imagine the promise of a worldwide vision. He really didn't see what is taking place even now and what will take place 10 years from now. The missions banquet in May will have this title, 2020 Vision with a Telescope of Faith. 1,000 churches in 150 countries by the year 2050, by the year 2020. 2020 Vision. 2020 Vision, a telescope of faith. 1,000 churches in 150 countries. I like that. 1,000 churches is 425 more by the year 2020, and from 70-something countries to 150. You got to have a vision. You got to have a vision, and this is vitally important, especially for some of you younger people, like Oliver, Kevin, Pastor Alfred. I was going to say Pastor Eugene, but he's kind of getting up there in age. No. I could say Garvey too, but yeah. I was hoping I could get permission that when people didn't walk with God, when they came into heaven, we could take them aside and talk to them, like severely. But since there's no old sin, well, maybe it could be the new person. I think sometimes rebuke is spiritual, Imagine getting rebuked in heaven. You get to heaven, you get rebuked. Well, I guess that's what the Bema seat is, right? Everything you did that wasn't from God goes up in smoke. Everything I did is just one big bonfire. Remember the message about the gas mask at the Bema seat? The smoke is so bad you need a gas mask, you can't breathe. And the Bema seat is actually the rebuke before you go in. I spent 20 years working in a nursing home. Oh, really? That was never my will. That's awesome. That wasn't my will. That was your will. And I wonder how many times I've tried to control God's plan. Christians are very good at that. They get a plan, and then they say, God bless it, but God's not in it. God has already blessed you because you have all spiritual blessings in heavenly places. But I make the plan, I ask God to bless it. God says, you can't bring me into your plan. My plan is the only plan I bless. Are you with me? Not your plan, my plan. My plan. Your plan is to retire and play golf for 20 years. My plan is for you to go to Malawi when you're 75. Right? You don't even play golf, do you? No, thank you. I like sports where you can really get hurt. It's more challenging. Really, like where there's danger. Golf, there's no danger in golf. Some squirrel might run across the grass or something, try to bite you, and something like that, Yeah, well, we know that. We have evidence. So we're talking about the importance of Abraham, and he progressed in life. Now, look at chapter 11, and I want you to see something that is a prevailing thought. Hebrews 11:1. Now, faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things. What's the next two words? That's an interesting phrase. How many times do we live by the seen? The seen. The seen. Look at verse number 3. Through faith we understand that the worlds were framed by the word of God, so that things which are what? Are seen were not made of things which do appear. Not seen. Verse 5. By faith Enoch was translated that he should not see death, and was not found because God had translated him. For before his translation he had testified that he had pleased God. Look at verse 7. By faith Noah, being warned of God of things, what? Not seen, as yet, moved with fear, prepared an ark for the saving of his house, by which he condemned the world and became heir of the righteousness, which is by faith. Verse 8. Now, it doesn't say the words not seen, but it's very much a part of the verse. By faith, Abraham, when he was called to go out into a place which he should after receive for inheritance, obeyed, and he went out, what? Not knowing. He didn't know where he was going, so obviously he hadn't seen it. Not seen. Verse 10. For he looked for a city which has foundations, whose builder and maker is God. Looking by faith and living in the not seen. Verse 13. We already read that. And you see where it says, seen afar off. Verse 27. Speaking of Moses, by faith he forsook Egypt, not fearing the wrath of the king, for he endured as seeing him who was what? Invisible. So really you see the emphasis of faith here is a faith based on what's not what? Not seen. Not seen. And so this whole chapter, and even verse 1 and 2 of chapter 12, looking unto Jesus, the author and the finisher of our faith, we can see there's a great emphasis on faithfulness of God and faith, and not fellowshipping with what you can see. And not walking, what does it say in 2 Corinthians 5:7? We walk by faith, not by what? Not by sight. And so often the devil becomes my eye doctor. Did you like that, Jim? The devil becomes my eye doctor. I mean, he's always showing me things. What did Jesus have shown to him in Luke chapter 4? Satan showed him the kingdoms of the world in a moment of time. But Jesus was not going to fellowship with that which he showed him. So Satan is always going after the eye gate. He goes after the eye gate. Isn't that what lust is all about? Of any of the 6 major forms of lust. Isn't that what it's all about? It's all about the eye. You drive down the street and you see so much. And so much that we see can influence us. Especially, I mean, it's really interesting when you take somebody like Pastor Alfred from a village in Liberia and you drop him in a New York City or America. There's so much that the eye has never seen, right? You're looking at things and you can't even believe. And by the way, when they take you and drop you in an African village, it's the same thing. It could be the very same thing. You're looking and go, what is that? What is this? What's going on there? Or when you see Oliver eating a baby duck egg with the duck that's living in the egg. And it actually made me want to vomit when I saw it. That's why I'm never going to the Philippines again because of what they did. It left a scar on my little brain. I'm only joking. But we walk by the scene. When you talk to somebody, I was telling some of the young people today, don't look at people's faces when you evangelize them. You're allowing what's seen to control your thinking. Maybe they make a face, maybe they got a bad facial expression, the countenance and we don't see the heart. Because maybe the exterior is one way, but maybe deep down we've got to see really beyond the external. And so faith is important, not what is seen. Somebody's ridiculous phone is ringing. I don't know who's, what, or where, but I hope it's not mine. I don't even think I have one with me. So this idea of cross-cultural missions, I've got to have my eyesight crucified. There's a couple of things you need crucified with cross-cultural missions. Your smell should be crucified. Your eyes should be crucified. Your ears should be crucified. Your mouth should be crucified. What you smell, what you eat, what you hear, what you see. I think that's really good. If you got those 4 things crucified, you're all set, right? The smells. I remember one time we were in a village. Remember, I don't know if Pastor G remembers this. We were in somebody's home in Uganda, and they put some food on the table, and we were watching the rats eat the food. These rats were on the table, and I was just being very quiet. There was a couple of people that were there that were on the mission field that are no longer with us, but they were in shock. And I wasn't going to insult the guy, okay, because this is how they live. And there are those little things in the rooms, and they're around. And then when you feel them crawling up your leg, you have to just say, I'm going to be very quiet and kill this thing. Wesley Soko was one of the best. I remember one time, one came in a room in Bible college class in Zambia, and he caught it with his foot and snapped its neck with his 2 feet. He did it in 1 second. I don't know how he did it, but I said, you are an expert rat killer. That's amazing. My wife says I shouldn't say these things because no one will go to Africa. I say only called people will go. And that's the only ones I'd want anyway. Only called people. Those things won't bother them per se, but you have to have these things. The sight has to be crucified. Now, Malawi is different. You go into southern Africa, it's like Europe. It's a little bit different. So, eyesight, not living by the unseen, because we can be so controlled mentally by what we see. Isn't that where all these problems happen with pornography and adulterous affairs and all these things like fornication? It all starts with the eyesight. It all begins with the eye. And the eye sends a message to the mind. And then all of a sudden the mind thinks on what it sees. And it's incredible. So the not seen. And so really living in the things that are not seen. That is so important and so key. Now, there's some amazing verses on this. And I will give you some of them to write down so you can study this doctrine. Are you with me? Okay, that's good. Ephesians 1:17. God said through the Apostle Paul that the eyes of your understanding would be enlightened, that you would have a spiritual eye, that the eyes of your understanding would be enlightened. The word is photizo, that you would have a mind that has light. Ephesians 1:17. Very important. Very important. Isaiah chapter 6, verses 1 through 10. Isaiah was seeing himself instead of seeing God. And if you take a look at yourself, you will never see God unless you see the new person that God has made. But so many people struggle in Christianity because of evaluating themselves, not through the finished work, but through the old sin nature. And so Isaiah said, I am unclean and undone, but my eyes have what? Seen the King. And that's what delivered him. He got delivered from a poor self-image of being unclean and undone, means I have no ability. But my eyes have seen the King. 1 Corinthians 2:9. It's a great verse. Eye has not seen, ear has not heard, neither has entered into the heart of man the things that God has prepared for those who love him. Proverbs 29:18. Without a vision, people what? People perish. They run wild. 2 Corinthians 3:14. Satan blinds minds. He doesn't want us to see spiritually. He blinds minds. 2 Corinthians 3:14 and 2 Corinthians 4:4. The God of this world has blinded their minds, lest they should see the glorious gospel of Jesus Christ. 2 Corinthians 4:4. Mind blinder. The word blind is actually the word for smoke, elevating smoke. Speaks of pride. But smoke that's going up in the air. That is the word picture of the word blind. He blinds people's mind. 2 Peter 1:4 through 9. People cannot see afar off, Peter said. 2 Corinthians 4:15 through 18 talks about not living by the seen, but living by the unseen. Okay? Living by faith, not living by what you see, by what you see. Numbers chapter 13 and 14, read about it. It's amazing. We spoke about it in Budapest a little bit. They went up into the promised land, 12 spies. 10 of them came back and said, we see giants in Kenya. We see giants in the land. We see walled cities. We see the children of Anak there. We see 7 nations stronger than us. And it says they gave an evil report. Do you know that when I give a sight report, the actuality, it's evil? How's that? What they said was true, wasn't it? Were there walled cities? Were there giants? Were there 7 nations? Yes. They didn't say anything that was a lie. And it was said their report was evil. That's interesting, huh? Anything that's not of faith is actually what? Evil. It's evil. So you make a faith statement to me, I don't say it to you, and God doesn't say it to me, but he says it in the Bible. That's evil. I can't go on the mission field. I can't go cross-cultural missions. I am not equipped. Evil. I am too old. Evil. I have no money. Evil. I'm not healthy. Evil. Evil. It's evil. That's what it is. Sight is what? Evil. Oh, that hurts, doesn't it? That's so sad. It's evil. It's evil. And Caleb says, let us go up at once and possess it, for we are more than able. Isn't that good, huh, what he said? He stilled the people. By the way, a lot of times people and congregations need to be stilled. When everybody shut up, all this murmuring is going on. Giants, walled cities, sons of Anak, 7 nations. And it's all permeates the congregation, right? And isn't that how it goes through the brain sometimes? Huh? And Caleb stilled the people. In other words, everybody shut up. Of the whole nation, he's got the voice of God, right? One man. Joshua was there too. And by the way, you know what it got him? They wanted to stone him. In Numbers 14, they wanted to stone him and Joshua. Christians will stone you if you say something that's contrary to sight. There's even some believers that would like to stone you. Are you kidding me? You're going to do what? You're going to go where? You're going to go on the mission field? And they actually stone you with their words. But you know what? This is what they said also, the 10 spies. The land eats up its inhabitants. They're going to eat us alive. And then it says, we were grasshoppers in our own sight, and so we were in theirs. How you see yourself is how the enemy sees you. Grasshoppers. You know what happens to a grasshopper? They get stepped on. You know, they just jump around, right? Little grasshoppers. They saw themselves as grasshoppers, and so we were in their sight. And by the way, if you are insecure and intimidated, that's how people see you. That's how the enemy sees you. The devil makes it even worse. You're already insecure and intimidated, and Satan says, I'll do a job on you now for sure. Okay? So the land eats up anybody that comes against it. You know what Caleb said in Numbers 14:9? They are bread for us. They're not going to eat me up. They're my bread. Those giants are my lunch. Those walled cities are my lunch. Those 7 nations are dinner. I'm going to eat them for lunch. I like that. Hello? Anybody still here? Okay. Just wanted to make sure you're here. Huh? Haiti's bread for us. Africa's bread for us. China's bread for us. Huh? India's bread for us. Philippines bread for us. Islamic world bread for us. Afghanistan bread for us. Iran bread for us. Russia bread for us. They're going to get eaten up. My God. It's going to happen. I'm going to die. You probably die where you stay. How about Pastor Chris Armin's favorite missionary verse? 4 lepers, why sit ye here and die? Remember they were at the gate of Samaria? He loves that verse. We always talk about that and laugh. There was 4 lepers and they were sitting at the gate of Samaria, and one of them said, why sit we here and die? Let's go. Why sit? We got good news. Let's tell people good news. Why sit here and die at the gate? And by the way, the gate speaks of the decisions. Why sit here and die at the decision gate? So, I love it. And he said, not only did he say they're bread for us, their defense has departed. See, we don't realize that the defense has departed. God can take away their defense, their security. Their defense has departed. In Pastor Luigi's email, he said, I have a brand new vision for Black Africa Islamic people. I'm going after them. A brand new vision for Islam, that we can win them. Gambia, 99.9%, right? Yeah. Or you want to go back to the Liberian Sodom and Gomorrah on the coast. No, I'm just joking. You feel free. That's what they said to him. The coastal churches are Sodom and Gomorrah. No one wants to go into the interior. Remember the story about Mary Slessor? Her whole life she had a promise from God that she was going to get married. And she met this amazing missionary in Nigeria. And she said, I only have one question before we get married next year. If we marry, where will we live? She goes, I have a ministry among the cannibals in the interior of Nigeria. Where do you want to live? He goes, I will never live any place but the coast. She said goodbye. And she never married. I like that. That's what I call conviction. That's what I call having a calling from God. Wow. Their defense is departed, their bread for us. Now, read John 9:2. It's all about the man who was born blind. That's another awesome one. But let me talk a little bit about this student volunteer movement. We said it on Grace Hour today. And this was the greatest missionary movement in the history of the United States. From, let's see, when was it now? 1886. What a good memory you have. 1886 to 1928? You were born in 1986, so that's why you remember 1886, 100 years ago. You were born in 19 what? 86. Wow. I was in Africa then. The day you were born, I was in Africa. Okay, and this was the greatest movement, and it happened with people between the ages of 22 to about 35. Okay, and it was amazing. They sent out 20,500 missionaries in 50 years. That was 410 a year. That's more than one a day. Can you imagine? All students, all kind of engineered and having a foundation with John R. Mott, M-O-T-T. Phenomenal movement, young people. And they were called fanatics. They were the way people talked about them and looked upon them. They had intensity of purpose. They were brilliant young men and women. And their motto was the evangelism of the whole world in this generation. And 1/3 of them went to China, 1/3 to Asia, 1/3 to China and Asia, 1/3 to Africa, and 1/3 to America. So they actually had some goals that they had set. It peaked in the year 1920. In 1920, it hit its peak. And at that point in time, there was 45,000 missionaries on the field from the United States and around, mostly from America. We have the greatest missionary movement for 100 years here in this country. You know what Richard Wurmbrand says? Criticism of America is satanic. Interesting. His viewpoint as a Romanian. He says criticism of the United States is engineered by Satan to do anything he can to stop missions. And he can criticize it in many ways and through many avenues and even by saying right things. But he says criticism, America was responsible for 90% of all missions. And 90% of all mission money came from the United States. All the way up until about 20 years ago. Did you know that? 90% of all missionaries and all money came from this country. And he said that when you have criticism of America, it is satanic. You say, I don't agree with that? No? Talk to him when you get to heaven. So John R. Mott said the reason why there was 12 lies told about missions. There were 12 lies. He said, don't buy the lie. And these 12 things that were taking place during this time, when this movement took place, these 12 things are very similar to today. So that gives me a great hope that just because those things happened then, there was a great impetus for missions. And we can see that in so many different places. Just going to Eurocon, you see people with visions to go to different places, different countries, and whatnot. I'm going to give you these 12 things that could hinder missions, but did not hinder these people. They had intensity of purpose. They were on fire. Number one, liberal Christianity. During this time, from 1886 to 1928, Christianity was very liberal. What do I mean by liberal? No soul winning, no prayer, no body life, and no emphasis of the Bible. Is that going on today? Very liberal. A very liberal Christianity. We have a liberal government, and we have liberal Christianity. It kind of follows the same way. Are you with me? Are you floating in your mind somewhere? Okay. Check it out. Pay attention. Satan loves to rob people's brains. Yeah, even at 8:20. Okay? Get you thinking about something else, like what you're going to eat when you get home, or how much gas you have in your car, or whatever. Are you going to make it home? Liberal Christianity, it's all over the place. It's everywhere. It's everywhere. And that you could say that's a hindrance, but it's not. It wasn't a hindrance then, and it's not a hindrance now. It may be there, but it's not a reason for us to ever be discouraged or to take a step back. So no soul winning. And you see churches that don't even know what soul winning is. They have no idea what evangelism is. I don't care how big they are, what kind of piece of property they have, how much money they have, how gifted their leaders are. If there's no soul winning, they cannot be spiritual. I don't care if you think I'm wrong, you're wrong. If there's no soul winning in a church, that church is not a spiritual church. Case closed, finished, coffin sealed with their death. Liberal Christianity. Number 2, people always talk about finances today, don't they? This movement took place in the Great Depression. This movement, student volunteer movement, took place during the Depression. Money didn't hinder them. The Great Depression, the church and people had no money. There was a lot of poverty. It was the Great Depression. How many times do we hear, well, we don't have money? What kind of treasury bills and bank accounts did 11 Galileans have? Anybody know? What do they have? Did they have a year's worth of missionary support and health insurance? I love it. We want people to have health insurance only because we don't want to pay for their casket. When they come, if they die, we don't want to pay that money for, So we want them to have insurance so the church doesn't have that kind of money to pay. No, whatever. I never had insurance when I went overseas. I was overseas in Africa. In Africa, of all places, I never had insurance. I didn't give a flying rip about insurance. Whatever, I went to a hospital, and the guy said to me, you got to have your appendix out, and I had kidney stone. Who needs insurance? We don't even know if they can diagnose you right, I'm not worried about anything like that. I had an interesting time in one hospital in Ghana. I passed 5 kidney stones in Africa. You know what it's like to pass a kidney stone? No fun. It's like having a baby, they say, right? The pain. All I had with me was Mike White. Mike White was a guy that weighed 550 pounds, and he was with me in Africa for a whole year. He broke every piece of furniture in my house. He sat on everything and broke it. He broke the bed. He broke the couch, the kitchen table, the car seat in my car. He broke everything. He goes, nothing but a bunch of junk. Why don't they make things right? No, he was an awesome soul winner. His father weighed 600. No, he was 550, but he was muscle. I saw him turn over a car one time. Yeah, just pick the car and put it on its side. I'm like, he ripped the door off the missions office once. He didn't know you got to buzz yourself in. He yanked it, and the door came off. He goes, cheap American junk. He was from Canada. He was Canadian. He'd grab you by the neck and hug you and almost break your neck. It'd be like, he was an amazing guy. It took 12 of us to carry his casket when he passed. 12 people on the casket. It was like unbelievable. And you know what he did? He had some money, and he left it all to Africa, not to anybody in his family. Man, I could see the family's faces when I preached at the funeral. Wow, they were not happy. They were not happy. He didn't give a flying rip about anything. He just didn't care, Why do you think the Catholic Church has so much money? Everybody dies and leaves their money to the church. I think people ought to pick up that habit. Government's is going to get it anyway, right? They got to tax the money you make, tax the money you earn, and then tax you when you die. It's unbelievable, isn't it? Wow. No taxes in Africa. You have to pay taxes, right, Pastor Alfred? You never paid taxes in your life until you came here. Okay, so finances. It was the Great Depression. 11 Galileans had nothing. Okay? But they had a telescope, didn't they? Those 11 Galileans ended up in a lot of countries. Persia. Thomas went to India. Think of these were very poor people. They had nothing. One of our greatest missionary churches, I've said it before, is the church in Togo. The average person in Togo makes $50 a month. And it's amazing. They have churches in Burkina Faso, Mali, Niger, Ivory Coast. Benin, Cameroon is next, and Gabon. I mean, it's one of the greatest missionary churches in the ministry, other than Finland. And it's incredible what God is doing, and they don't have anything. God is not limited by what people seem to have. Really. We're just finishing a building in West Africa that holds 2,500 people. Yeah, 800 in the balcony alone. The balcony is 800 people. I said, Pastor John, like, what are you doing? A balcony, that costs you double on the building. He goes, God told me balcony. He's got it kind of like a thing like this, so that you can stand at a certain place. And we've had 2005 at conventions in Ghana, and it's amazing. So we're just roofing it. We got the steel up. I don't even know how they're doing it, but they're doing it. Pastor Paul also has a building that can hold 22,000 people in Togo. These are very poor countries, but God is doing it. It's amazing. So don't think about finances when it comes to missions. When it comes to life, so many people are controlled by like checking. And by the way, learn how to spend money too. I'm amazed at how many young people are so. How much is the average American in debt? Anybody have an idea? $30,000 in credit card debt. I'm not owing anybody anything. If I don't need it, I'm not buying it. And I'm not buying it to impress somebody I don't like. I love everybody, but I don't always like everybody. By the way, that's true, You can love everybody, but you don't have to like everybody. Okay? So, you say, I don't know what that means. You'll find out someday. But it's amazing. People got so much debt. Don't buy it unless you can pay it. Like in Africa, there's no such thing as a credit card. Is there, Pastor Alfred? Is that coming in new now? Credit cards? I don't think so. Not a whole lot, right? You got the money in your pocket, you get something. You haven't got the money, you don't get it. Watch out how you spend money. You put yourself under the gun, and then now you're paying like 20, 30% interest rate. It's ridiculous. People get themselves into holes that are incredible. Incredible. And that really hinders them from going overseas, and it's a satanic plan. It's a plan of the devil to put them in tremendous debt so they can never even think about anything. So finances, they did it during the Great Depression. And the church never had finances. Oh, we need a building. Well, you can meet under a tree if you haven't got a building. You can have a tree church, can't you? Church in the tree. Right? Have a conference outside in the sun. Somebody asked me about the one in Haiti. Well, what if I said to the guy, I'm not paying $500 for 2 days to have a convention just because it's a nice place. I want to pay nothing somewhere. And guess what? We found a place for nothing somewhere. And that's where it's going to be. We're going to have our convention at the Nothing Somewhere place. Costs us nothing, and it's somewhere. Where it is, I don't know. I don't really care. But you know what? It's like, whatever. So, number 3. During this time of the student volunteer movement, there was an ecumenical movement. There was false unity in Christianity. There was the unity of all these strange doctrines. Ecumenicalism is everywhere, okay? We all have to be one. No, we don't. 2 birds have 4 wings. If you tie them together, they don't fly better. They don't fly at all, okay? So somebody thinks if we get together with people that have doctrines that are contrary to the truth, that's something. There was a great ecumenical movement during this time. And just like there is today, right? Everybody wants to be one. Even Islam wants to be one, right? They want to be one with Christianity. Isn't that what the Pope's talking about? We should be one with Islam. Well, put your funny hat on, and take it to hell, all right? That's where you're going, I mean, what? Don't go give. I always hear, the Pope is saved. What are you, nuts? I'm not saying he couldn't be, but I kind of doubt it. I kind of doubt if you could be in that system, be praying to Mary and rosary beads and indulgences and purgatory and masses for the dead and be saved. Come on, use your head. Whatever. Come out from among them. Isn't that what the Bible says? I'm not saying a person couldn't be. I'm just saying, The ecumenical movement, we're going to be one with Islam. And you're going to be one with Buddhists too, right? Well, might as well have that one be too. And how about Hindus, right? And what about idol worshipers? Is that okay too? People that worship idols? How about people? It's so many crazy things. The ecumenical movement was at a high peak, and they still had the missionary movement. Number 4, the social gospel and the emerging church were there then. The social gospel and the emerging church. We got to educate and feed people. And we got to be a medical provision for people. We want to be medical, agricultural, and educational. Well, that's not what Jesus did he? Did he feed people? Of course, but did he teach them first? Well, there's a lot of missions out there today that are educational, medical, and agricultural. And I'm not saying that we shouldn't do that, but that better not be the priority. And this is what was going on then. It was called the social gospel. Let's have everybody have a social life. So you feed people, and then they go to hell fat. So what? So what have you done? Whatever. I'm not against that. We do that with orphans, and we have farms all over Africa. And we take care of people. And we have medical. We're taking a couple medical people to Haiti with us. But you know what? That's not the priority. The priority is a soul saved, isn't it? And if you're not careful, the social gospel takes over. Right? It's not much better than the UN, is it, Pastor Alfred? Isn't that what they do? They do what the UN does, right? In fact, the UN does more. By the way, all those people exist because the church has not done what it should do. We should be doing some of these things, education, medical, and whatnot. Not as a priority, but it should be happening, but it isn't. Next, number 5. Are you with me still? Self-indulgent, idle, and lazy people existed during this movement. Self-indulgent, idle, and lazy. They lived for convenience and comfort. It was a self-orientated Christianity. That occurred then, and it's here now. But it didn't stop these people. These young people were on fire for God. Self-indulgent, idle, and lazy. You know what? I have very little pity for people that have, through self-indulgent, lazy lives, got themselves in the situations. Whatever happened to hard work anyway? Paul said, I labored more abundantly than you all. How about this one? If you don't work, you shouldn't eat. That's a good one, huh? Anybody like that verse? Oh, no, not many people like that verse. You don't work, you shouldn't eat. I remember when I used to work in the church in Springfield, my brother and I ran a counseling center. So people would come and say, I need money for rent. You never see them in church. I say, come with me. I take them behind the back of the building. You know that building, right, Gail? I give them a shovel. I say, move that dirt pile over there. They said, for what? I said, just because I want you to. You want $200? Move the dirt. Oh, no. My brother will give me $200. I ain't got to do anything. Bye. Goodbye. That was the test. Paint a room. I'd like you to go on and paint the basement. I'd like you to go paint the boiler. I need $300. If I don't get $300, I'm going to lose my apartment. Paint the boiler. It'll take you 3 days. I ain't got time. Bye-bye. Have a good day. You just give money away. Just give money away. Like, how about doing something for the money? Hello? You say that's works. No, it's not. It's causing people to be disciplined and not entertaining freeloaders who just want handouts. There's a good test for that. Are you with me? There's a good test. By the way, had them in Africa all the time. Everybody needed money, right? How about everybody needing to do some work? Huh? Move these bricks over here, and then when you're done, move them back. That makes no sense, I know. That's why I'm asking you to do it. Move those 50 bricks from here to there, and then when you're done, move them back over here. No, they used to think we were crazy. And we were. Number 6. They wanted to cooperate, not convict or convert people. They wanted to cooperate with religions. Now they want to cooperate and not convict and seek conversions. They said they wanted to see the best in every religion. The best in Hinduism, Gandhi. The best in Buddhism. The best in Islam. And that was going on then just like it is now. Let's cooperate. Why are we going into countries and preaching about Jesus? Let these people do what they're doing. What's wrong with what they believe? We hear that a lot. Cooperate? No. I want to bring in conviction and conversions, okay? And there's only one way, and that's important. So there's the cooperation people. They wanted to cooperate then, and they want you to cooperate now. Number 7, there was a great attack on missions at that time, and so there is today. They saw it as a lower status kind of task for the lower status of people, okay? They said you were wasting your life. They were critical, and they called them fanatics. It was seen to be not something that, like, a person of high intelligence, even as a Christian, would do. It was an attack, a critical attack, saying that people were wasting their lives. Number 8, leadership had no vision. Leadership, they were carnal. I just put this little phrase in. It was a no to the go. They said no to the go. And when leadership is not for missions, then what happens to the people in the church in most cases? Hello? Have you ever wondered why God, we have 11 elders in the church. We have a presiding elder, Pastor Schaller, Hungary, Finland, myself, Africa, Pastor Hadley, Ecuador, Pastor Glenn, India, and Baku. Okay? Are you with me? Isn't it interesting? If you look at the board, Pastor Gary, Germany, Pastor Mark Minicello, right, Romania and France. Just go through the elders board, and you'll see that most of them have been on the what? So what do you think God is saying about the ministry? We're called to have a great church here. Sometimes people also make this critical statement. Well, the church is only for missions. They're not for family. Oh, then why do we have a Christian school? If we're not for family, why do we have a Christian school? Why do we have marriage roundtables, marriage getaways? Hello? Come on. That's baboonish. That's satanic monkeyism. No such word. No, that's crazy. Come on. That's not true at all. We have marriage counseling for anybody that needs it, and we're for the family. But we're also for missions. So leadership has got to say yes to the go, not no to the go. And it comes out when you'll never hear some people ever mention missions. By the way, sometimes people are afraid to lose good people or tithers. Or if we give to mission, then we can't have a crystal cathedral or whatever, No, seriously, it's interesting. Leadership that doesn't have a vision for missions creates a church that's just like it. Number 9, areas of the world are overpopulated with churches. They were then and they are now. That there's competition for souls. Our church is better than your church. We have a bigger baptismal. We have a nicer air conditioning system. We have nice, comfortable chairs than you do. And it's all competition for souls. By the way, a lot of church growth is not new souls. It's just people leaving one place to go to another. Hello? Are you with me? You go to some parts of the country, and that's what it's like a war for who can get who. Who can get who. It's not a war. It's not soul winning. It's just transfer growth. You know what the difference between transfer growth and real growth? Huh? Transfer growth. We go soul winning to get new people. We're not against transfer growth if they're coming from wrong doctrine into true doctrine. But for the most part, you want new souls. New souls. So there was a lot of that then, overpopulation in certain areas. And these people, these 20,500 said, no, we're going where there's no churches. We're going to China, we're going to India, we're going to Southeast Asia, we're going to Africa. That's where we're going. So Overpopulated churches. Next, in these churches at that time, there was no discipleship, just like there is now. No discipleship. Nobody was interested in Bible college. Training. Training for what? I can read my Bible and the Holy Spirit will teach me. Oh, really? Then I guess Jesus made a mistake when he had 11 disciples. I think Paul made a mistake in Acts 20, verse 4, when he traveled with 10 men. I guess it was a mistake when 2 Timothy chapter 2, verses 1 through 4 says, train faithful men. I guess Moses made a mistake when he had 70 people in Exodus 17 and 18, Exodus 18. No, it's always been that. So no discipleship, that destroys missions. No discipleship. And it's important to be trained so you don't go out there and get killed spiritually. A lot of people want to go, and what are they going to actually do? They're not ready to go. Okay? By the way, John Mark was not ready. He went with Paul in Acts 13 because he was the nephew of Barnabas. And he got himself destroyed. And only Peter brought him back in 1 Peter 5:13. John Mark could not handle the illy Mr. Sorcerer stuff, you know. In Acts 13, he said, I got to leave. When it says he departed, it didn't mean he just had an idea to go somewhere else. He left in apostasy. He left with a wrong attitude. John Mark, and by the way, Lot was not supposed to go either. Get thee out of thy country, away from thy kindred, and from your father's house. That's what he told Abraham. Don't take Lot with you. You weren't supposed to take Lot with you. And John Mark wasn't supposed to go. Separate unto me Paul and Barnabas. It didn't say Paul, Barnabas, and John Mark, did it? So it's important that we have disciples and we're trained. That's why we're in these classes, trained to go on the mission field. And Dr. Stevens told me one time, I remember I was at the 2-year point in Bible college, and I had started a couple of small works in Springfield. And I was thinking about missions. I had traveled to a lot of places. He said, you'll only take a person as far as you've gone. If you've gone 2 years, you can't take them farther than 2 years. I thought, wow, that's interesting. That's kind of a nice, a little pin in your balloon. Your spiritual balloon got popped. Dr. Stevens popped my spiritual balloon. I said, well, I guess that means training. Can't you wait to go down and get your heart operated on by a guy that's just been in medical training for one year? Yeah, open me up, cut me wide open, and do a transplant. You had a year. You had a year of experience. That's pretty good. I'll take it. You're dead. Okay. Number 11. As then, so is today. There was great fear and doubt. There's great fear and doubt. People feared the mission field, and they doubted what God would do. Fear and doubt. And Satan is the author of fear and doubt and the flesh. Number 12. Then people could not cut their ties, and today people cannot cut their ties. What do I mean by cutting their ties? Cutting your tie with your family, cutting your ties with your country, cutting your economic ties, cutting your physical and your health provision ties, cutting your friendship ties. Huh? All my friends are in the church. Whatever. Make new ones. Go make new ones, okay? Go make some new friends, right? I got Ugandan friends, Zambian friends, Ghanaian friends, Togolese friends, Liberian friends, Burkina Faso friends, Indian friends, Chinese friends. Make new friends. By the way, you stay with the same people long enough, you're going to start wearing each other out. Isn't that good? You have an opportunity to make new Slokis. You'll find a lot of them in Botswana and in Durban. Okay? Not LA, not Nepal, not the Philippines, no, whatever. I'm just joking. No, I'm not. Yes, I am. No, I'm not. I'm confused. Okay, so really, when we think about this kind of fellowship, and I want to read something to you that I thought was awesome as we... A lot of great information. If you look at from Jerusalem to Irian Jaya, that's going to be your final exam, okay? Here's your final exam. By Buy the book From Jerusalem to Irian-Jaya. That's going to be your final, okay? Buy the book. Just buy it and read it. Okay? I'll test you next year on it. Buy it. You say, wait a minute, I don't have the money. Well, borrow it from Steve Murillo, Pastor Steve Murillo. Yeah. Or, I don't know, from Jim Mark. Buy it. If you have it already, you're fine. No, I want you to buy that book. That's your final exam, okay? You're going to do a midterm. Your final is to buy that book. All right? And then write me, let's see if you could just write something about the book for your final, like 1 page. It's the most amazing book other than the Bible I've ever read. It really is. It's amazing. From Jerusalem to Irian-Jaya by Ruth Tucker. But she's just the one that put together stories of missions from Acts to the present day. How many of you have that book already? Oh, see that? You just saved yourself $20. You can probably buy it cheap on one of those Amazon gypsy joints. Huh? $8? Okay, really? What kind of a binding is that? That binding's not going to last long. I got 3 of them in case I lose one. I got 3 of them. No, it's an awesome book on missions, cross-cultural missions. And don't just buy it, but read it, okay? Jerusalem to Irian-Jaya. I don't know. You'll find it somewhere. I have no idea where it is. But it's a great book, and that if you read it, you'll be so blessed, and it will really give you a lot of insight into what's taking place. I'm going to talk at another class about China Inland Mission and Sudan Interior Mission, which are amazing movements of God. In China and Sudan, I did a lot of research on them, and I think it's phenomenal. So just don't take notes on this. Just listen to this. I love this. In Genesis 35:18, you can write that verse down. But Rachel was dying, and when she died at the birth of her son, and she called her son Benoni, son of my sorrow. Jacob said, his name is Benjamin, son of my right hand. Now you could say, why would Jacob have a different perspective than her? Because she was dying. So that was son of her sorrow. And I read something from Charles Spurgeon. It really struck me. And it really speaks about how to see with a telescope and not a microscope. Are you ready? Don't try to copy this down. I'll just tell you where it is when I'm finished. You can look it up. All right? Talking about looking at things from 2 perspectives. The telescope is Benjamin. A microscope is Benoni. Samson's lion yielded honey. Isn't that good? Stormy seas feed many fish. Wild forests produce beautiful flowers. Heavy winds sweep away plagues. Biting frost loosens hard soil. Dark clouds bring needed rain. Vein of gold can be found in a mine of evil. A bright blazing lamp can be seen when the pitcher is broken. A rough oyster shell yields a rare pearl. The deep ocean has priceless coral. When the flood ebbs, you find the treasure in the sand. When the sun sets, you turn your telescope to where the stars are shining. I thought that was amazing. And that was from Charles Spurgeon's devotional on March 8th, in his evening and his morning and evening devotional. So as we just think about cross-cultural missions, think about having a telescope of faith. And don't live in microscopic situations. Microscopic, I mean, everything. We make small things so big. We make small things so big. We're so analytical about things. We can get analytical. We can self-analyze. We can analyze everything. We can get critical. Don't be like that. Don't be microscopic. See the big picture. All right? Somebody rubs you the wrong way. Have a telescope, not a microscope. Somebody in the church, when something happens in a relationship, don't be microscopic, be telescopic. Something goes wrong, a little thing like a little worm, A little worm can take down a big tree in Africa when it finds a hole in the bark. All right? Don't be microscopic, because you get microscopic about things. And like somebody could have 99 great spiritual values, and you find the one that they don't have. And you penetrate and talk about that one. And you go after that one. We're all sinners. We all have weaknesses. We all have interesting personalities. Hello? Okay? But what we do is we take the best. We don't become microscopic about everything. If you got one hair on your head, have a telescope on it. Right? And say, I got one hair. That's better than no hairs, rather than saying, right? I mean, don't be microscopic over every little thing that goes on, I should have got a B and I got a C plus. Oh my God, I got to go see that teacher and I'm so bent out of shape, and why did he do this and how come that and whatever, and somebody didn't say hi to me. Every little thing becomes so big. But put your telescope of faith to situations and see the big picture. Don't see the way man sees, the world sees, and the devil wants us to see. But keep your telescope of faith right to your eye. Father, thank you tonight. Help us. When it says looking unto Jesus, it means having a fixed look, a concentrated look, and a purposeful look. Looking unto Jesus. So bless our night. Keep people safe as they travel. Bring us back for outreach tomorrow. And really bless in Jesus' name. Amen.